when it comes to adding files to your existing Photoshop files, if you want to include an Illustrator file or a PDF or a JPEG, GIF or PNG file, there are three different ways you can do this. The first one, if we look at this JPEG over here, if I open that inside Photoshop, I can either select all, which you can get from going up here and doing Command and A or Control and A on a PC, and then copy, hop over to my other file and paste, and that comes in as a layer. That's one way of doing it. The next way that you can do it is very similar. If you have two files open inside Photoshop, you can hold the Shift key down. You don't need to do this, but if you hold the Shift key down, what it does is it allows you to place something right in the middle of the file you drag it to. So we're going to hold the Shift key down and drag it onto the tab at the top there. And when I let go, the image appears in the middle of the canvas of our other Photoshop file. So that's copying, pasting, opening and dragging JPEGs. That, as I said, is true of PNG files and GIF files. I'm going to delete this, and the next file I want to look at is this one over here, which is an Adobe Illustrator file, and I think this is true of EPS files as well, perhaps. If I have Illustrator open at the same time as Photoshop and I copy a file, hop over to Photoshop and paste it in, I get this dialog here, a paste dialog, giving me 4 different ways of including the Illustrator artwork. The first is as a smart object, and if I do that and then accept the file, over in the Layers panel I get a Vector Smart Object icon added, and that basically establishes a link between this and the original Illustrator file. It does create a temporary version of it, but the link is maintained. So if I double click this, it opens up inside Illustrator, and then if I want to make an edit to my artwork, let's say for example I change the fill to a gradient and I save that, when I hop back over to Photoshop it updates because the link tells it that a change has been made to the original file. Excuse me. The other thing with a Vector Smart Object is if I then go to transform it, so I've pressed Command and T or Control and T, and then I start dragging it up to a fairly large size, you're seeing some rough edges at the moment because this is in a preview mode, but as soon as I press the return or the enter key, those smooth edges come back because this is vector artwork. And unlike bitmap artwork, which is a picture or a photograph, in vector artwork the pixels are not locked to a specific place. If you scale artwork that is pixel based and you increase the size of it, you will soon see the difference it will make. I'll show you that now by pasting in another copy, this time as pixels, and I'm going to press the return key. So we don't have our little icon, it's not a vector object. If I double click it, it only brings up the layer style panel. But if I go to transform this one and drag it up to similar kind of size to my other one, as you can see when I press the return key, those edges have become pretty harsh. These edges are the result of bitmapped artwork being scaled up. So anything that is pixel based won't magnify particularly well, and that's worth bearing in mind. I'm going to delete this layer because I wanted to just place the same pixel based artwork again, but this time before I actually place the artwork I'm going to resize it, and when I do this, as you can see, this is not far off. I've got clean edges. The reason for that is because the artwork, although I've placed it as pixels, I haven't fixed where those pixels are until I accept or hit the return key and paste the artwork in. So that's that. The next option, I could excuse me, paste it as a path, and when I do that you see the path there and a path appears over in my work path in the paths palette. Okay, back to the layers. If I paste it as a shape layer, that comes in and gives me a shape layer object, which I can do various things with. If I choose one of the shape tools, for example, again I can come in and I can turn it into a shape layer that has different fill. I could place a stroke around it if I wanted to do that. And also, sort of fairly importantly I guess, when I go to transform this, again shape layers are vector based, and if I deselect from there you'll see I've got a nice clean edge still. So shape layers are vector based, and that's the fourth option when you go to paste. So I'm going to just clean up and hide these, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, in fact I can even close Illustrator now, I don't need that open. If I want to place a PDF, I can come up here, go to the file menu and choose place. Now I have a keyboard shortcut set up, F1 for my thing, which I'll be using in future. And when I want to place it, I select the file and go to place, and I get this place PDF box that comes up, and this gives me several options. At the moment it's set by default to select pages, or I can choose images, and when I choose images that's all I get within my options. So let's choose a page down here, and the first option is cropping it to the bounding box. We have other options which I'm going to show you in a minute. Now the reality is that actually some of these you may not notice a great deal of difference, but the bounding box is supposed to crop the artwork to the smallest rectangular region, including any of the text and graphics on the page or the artwork, so it gets rid of any white space that you don't have. So choose that one and click OK, and there we are, we can see it pasted. At the moment, I'm not going to transform this and increase the size, so that is the bounding box option. I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to place again the same one, and this time I'm going to choose the media box. Now media box crops to the original size of the artwork itself, of the page, so it will fit the size of our document here in effect. Press escape on that, so I don't need to keep placing these. The next version that we've got, if I want to place it again, this time I'm going to do it as a crop box. So the crop box will crop to any crop margins basically that you've got set up in printer's marks in the PDF file. So there's the crop one, and you can see that. In fact, I'm going to actually name this layer crop for you, so you can see that, and I'm going to just move it over here. The next one I'm going to place is going to be done to the bleed. So any bleed region that's been specified in the PDF, there we are, it crops to that, and as you can see you get a slight difference in the size of some of the artwork in the way that it's placed. So our bleed on this artwork doesn't include these colour bars, for example. It's outside of the crop area, but we've got some bleed, so it's gone and it's taken the artwork and placed it respecting the bleed margins. So that's bleed. Moving that one across and coming now to the next option, which is going to be the trim box. And the trim box is based on the intended size or finished size of the page. So we're getting 3 different sizes here, as you can probably see. So this is trim, and if we look at this logo across the top, you can see how much space we've got towards the edges. That one is trim, and the last one that we're going to bring in is art box, and this one is dependent on any region that's been set up in, for example, in Illustrator or InDesign as an artboard. So it's something that's been again specified in another program, and in many cases you won't notice differences between the relative sizes of some of these elements. So that's that, and ultimately I think that's pretty much covered adding, copying, pasting, placing.